Okay, so we all know June the 7th. That's going to be Fabio Wardley versus Justice Hooney. We're all looking forward to that. That's a good fight. Well, I am looking forward to it, not as much as I would have been if it was Big Farmer Miller. But look, it is what it is. Things happen, and we have this in its place. But on the undercard, it's a pretty good undercard as well. Dillian Whyte is making his return to, well, actually, he's making his return to a UK ring, first time since 2022. November 22, he fought Jermaine Franklin in the OVO Arena up in Wembley. And then he's fought in Castlebar, County Mayo, and in Gibraltar. Okay, two of the most, two random places to have your last two fights. Now he's making his return in Ipswich. We obviously know Portman Road. We don't know who he's going to be fighting yet. I'll talk about that now in a wee bit. In fact, actually, have a look on screen, right? I've heard rumours, and someone said it on one of Hatman's lives, that this is who Dillian Whyte is facing. Hemi Oi, I think is how you say his name. New Zealand heavyweight, 6 foot tall, 34 years old. 24-1, one knockout defeat and 18 stoppages. Now, if it is this guy, I've only seen him fight once, and I remember it very clearly because I was very unimpressed with him. And he fought on the undercard of Joseph Parker versus Junior 5. He fought a guy called Julius Lloyd Long, right? Julius Lloyd Long. That guy was like, how tall was he? Because he was tall. Yeah, he's 7'1". I remember that. And he's 47 years old now, so he would have been about 44 years old then. He literally looked like a 90s heavyweight. Like, you know the way that the heavyweights, a lot of them looked in the 90s? That was Julius Long. He looked terrible in that fight. Both of them looked terrible in that fight, but Ahio was down in round number 4. Julius Long, you could tell he didn't train properly, and he was taken out later on in the fight. More fatigued than anything else. It was it was a display that didn't set the world alight, to say the least. Now, if that's who Dillian Whyte is facing, I'm still not sure, quite frankly, and I'll talk about that now in a sec. But Dillian Whyte gave an interview with the Ring magazine, and he said the following. This is his career plan at 37 years old. I thought I need to get active as quickly as possible because I'm serious about having a last run at it again and possibly fighting for a world title. Well, the world titles are held respectively by Alexander Usyk and Daniel Dubois. Now it would be held by one man after July 19th, probably for not very long, truth be told. Likelihood is Alexander Usyk, well, I shouldn't say Alexander Usyk or Daniel Dubois. I think it'll be Alexander Usyk, but let's just say both guys. Likelihood is one of them will most likely get stripped of the WBO belt because obviously Joseph Parker will be waiting in the wings. More likely if it is Usyk, I think Dubois would probably try and do that fight, but more likely if it's Usyk, he'll probably win that WBO title. Which means then, and you're still looking at Alexander Usyk and Joseph Parker. Yeah, you have beaten Joseph Parker in the past a long time ago. I emphasize the long bit there because it was a long time ago. It was a much different Dillian Whyte. But nevertheless, he's aware that he's in the last run of his career and he is looking for said world title fight. So, let's talk about that, right? People, Dillian Whyte, I just need to put it in context, right? The last decent performance probably was against Povetkin, but you gotta, and the second fight, but you gotta take it in context, right? That was a washed up over the hill 40, he was definitely in his 40s, maybe he was 40 or closer to 41-year-old Alexander Povetkin. A Povetkin who was dropped twice against Dillian Whyte in their first fight, pulled an uppercut out when Dillian Whyte made a mistake and knocked Dillian Whyte out. A Povetkin who was knocked out by Anthony Joshua 2.5 years prior, who went life and death and arguably lost a fight against Michael Hunter. That's who Dillian Whyte's most recent best performance was against, and that was 4 years ago. Prior to that, the last good performance he had, you could say, was against Oscar Rivas. That was 2 years prior, 2019. We're going way back, people, 6 years. And even in that fight, he got dropped, right? But that was a decent performance. And then you could say, they were probably his last decent, because every fight he seems to be getting hurt in now. So I was going to say against Parker, he was hurt in that fight. He was down in that fight, so he's been getting hurt a lot lately. Now again, that's a long time ago. His most recent performances were against Christian Hammer, who was never that good, and wow, he was way over the hill by the time Dillian White fought him. And even then, that was just I won't use that fight as an example because neither guy had any real preparation. It was kind of chucked together lastminute.com, fair enough. The Ebenezer Tete fight, on the other hand, that was announced with ample enough notice. What, a month, 6 weeks there? I think it was a month. So he had ample enough notice, right? And that version of Dillian White is not going to win a world title. That version of Dillian White is probably going to struggle at, well, no, sorry, I was going to say probably struggle at British level. He will struggle at British level, definitely. That version of Dillian White is not doing anything. Like, you look at Jamie TKB, David Alaye, I'd probably pick them maybe over the Dillian, certainly over the Dillian White who fought Tete. All right, he needs to vastly improve from that. I don't know if he can because he looks so slow, so ponderous. Even his punching power seems like it's not quite there anymore, which Dillian White always had decent power, especially in the left hook. So I don't know. I'm amazed. I'd be amazed if Dillian White gets close to a world title on this most recent comeback. For me, what's most likely is it's probably going to be that he'll either look to get the Joshua rematch, if Joshua isn't facing Tyson Fury, which he may very well be, or he will look to, apologies about the cut there, I sneezed, I wasn't going to keep that in the video, or he will look to potentially get a rematch with Joseph Parker, because Joseph Parker is, well, we don't really know. We don't really know about Joseph Parker, actually, what he's doing next. But he's in line to fight the winner of Dubois versus Usyk, or at the very least be elevated to full champion. That might be his crack at a world title. Because I suspect that maybe not Dubois, maybe if Dubois beats Usyk, but certainly if Usyk beats Dubois, Parker's going to get elevated to full champion. And that, well, obviously Dillian White, I mean, the WBO are better than, say, the WBA and WBC, but, you know, they see money. And I guarantee Frank Warren would see money, and I guarantee Frank Warren would love to do Dillian White, Joseph Parker's first world title defense, should he become world champion, elevated world champion. And that may be the only crack he gets at a world title. I wouldn't put a penny on him winning. And whoever he's facing on June 7th, whether it is that heavyweight I just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, or it's John Doe, you need to be careful with Dillian White because he looks shot to bits. And I'm telling you now, you can say what you want about, because when he was at that press conference with Joe Joyce, as far as I was concerned, right, Dillian White sounded the worst out of the two. So I'm thinking there is miles. Man, this guy is like a 1970s car that's used as an everyday car. The miles must be off the flipping roof. It's only a matter of time before it gives way. That's what I'm thinking Dillian White is at this stage, at this point in his career. So you can say all that. That's all well and good. He can fight on these undercards, but I think disaster is near. And honestly, I think that in any of Dillian White's next couple of fights, even if they are against moderately low-level opposition, I think disaster could strike at any moment. So that's my thoughts on that. But I could be wrong. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. As we still don't know the actual opponent for Dillian White on June the 7th. We may know in the coming days, I don't know. But that is that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Leave it below. Hope you enjoyed the video, people. If you could, as always, smash the like button. If you could, hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. And until next time, peace.